Welcome to Get Busy Living with Clark Bartram. We're going to have an interesting conversation today about the state of fitness and where we're at, where we're headed, what's going on, what we should look forward to, what's exciting. And I've got a young man that I met at a convention here recently in San Diego, California. His name is Alex Kim. He is a graduate of UCLA. He's an engineer, and he challenged me when I went to this show, man. And I love a challenge and I love innovation. So Alex, welcome to Get Busy Living with Clark Bartram.
Thanks for having me. This is a big moment because, just a young entrepreneur seeing, in 6 months what we can do and what we can show the industry, and working with experts like you. I mean, just today we got to learn a lot. We've had this machine for 6 months on the market, and the amount of innovation we got in a 10-minute session with you is insane. So
that's what happens when you come over to my training lab and we put this stuff in like the real world environment. So let's back up a little bit and talk about that. First of all, I applaud the fact that you're a young entrepreneur. The world needs more young entrepreneurs with ideas and innovative thoughts that are really challenging this industry that we're in, because as you know, there are a lot of the same thing. You go to the fitness shows, and what we're speaking about is IRSA. It's a show that goes on every year. It's been going on forever. I've been attending it for a long time now. Mm-hmm. And it's not often that you see something new and different that is unique, right? How many ways can you do a bicep curl?
Right.
How many bicep machines can be made? Strength training has almost reached like a ceiling.
It has.
Right?
And it's interesting because you actually called people out at IRSA on the mic, which I thought was really funny. But, you said something along the lines of, why do we have these owners of fitness equipment companies creating equipment and not even working out? So like, why are they not practicing what they preach? And then, it's something what I've been preaching this whole time is it's a game of telephone. So you have people in the industry that work out and they understand sports science, but then they're trying to tell these, head of the companies, this is what we want to see. And then they're trying to tell the engineers who don't even work out, this is what we want to build. And so that game of telephone gets you like a preacher curl that's going to be functional. It's going to work. It's obviously going to work out your biceps, but it could be fine-tuned a little bit more. And you talk to any coach or trainer out there, they're like, yeah, I would definitely change this about this machine. And I think that's just that whole game of telephone being, shown in the market.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that business is at a place, especially today, where everybody's trying to streamline their payroll, get rid of a lot of people. So they wouldn't pay someone like me to come in and spend a week with them when actually the return on that investment would be huge, like you were just talking about a minute ago. Mm-hmm. You drove down. How long did it take you to get here?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. So you drove an hour and a half, you loaded up your machine, which we're going to talk about in a minute yet. We haven't really said what it is.
Right.
But you loaded it up, you put it in a van, you brought it out, and it's not easy to move around, but we put it in my driveway, and within 15 minutes, we had some things just by having fun that you haven't yet seen with that.
Right.
So tell us about what it is that you made and why you made it and how it all came to be. So kind of give us a little bit of the story on it.
Yeah, so I was working as a machinist in Hollywood. So we were working on, big production, Mandalorian, 911, SWAT, all those fun shows. And so my job back then was to take a concept from design into production and then onto set. So obviously it was very fast paced, high pressure. It'd be like, yeah, we need this gun for the Matrix next month, or we're crashing a Black Hawk helicopter in a couple months, so we need to build a couple. So that that fast paced environment really trained me into how to build product development. And then I looked at the market and I said, okay, people are charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for product development. Why can't we just do it ourselves? So COVID hit right around that time. And I was looking at facilities and, working with some of my old trainers that used to train me in martial arts. And one of the guys was like, what if we had a Smart Sled At the time, we were building a
Smart Sled.
A Smart Sled.
So is there anywhere that we can go online and bring this up right now while we're talking about it? We can look at it. Is there a website that Jim can pull up?
Bodycore.com.
So go to bodycore.com, Jim, and pull this Smart Sled up and let the people see what it is that we're talking about, because it really is smart. And sleds have been used for decades. You talked about coaches, right? It makes me think about the football coaches of the old days with the old coaching shorts on,
Right.
and they're out there standing on a blocking dummy while a lineman is pushing it down the field. That was the origination
Right.
of what now is a sled, which was first a prowler, right? Is just a friction sled.
Right.
And then we've gone to these kind of chain driven ones like you saw at my house. Now you have the Smart Sled that is doing what different?
So you have, like you said, you have the friction-based sleds like the Prowler. Then you have torque tank. They're more, chain-driven and braking systems, mechanical braking. What we've developed is a motorized sled. So we utilize permanent magnet motors, and we developed a unique technology underneath. So
Robert, could you show him which one to look at online there, please? So we know, pull up. Is that the one?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Okay, we got it. All right.
So yeah, it utilizes permanent magnet motors, and then
Make sure you're talking to that mic.
our proprietary technology. So that allows us to control the sled via Bluetooth. So now instead of having a break in between, so if you're doing speed work, right? So acceleration, we could go from a heavy load, and your coach could press a button wirelessly and then have you accelerate.
Yeah, I know this firsthand because I've pushed it a couple different times, and it's definitely challenging. So the benefit of having a coach there, adjusting the resistance and the variability of the direction in which it moves, what are the benefits of that compared to a friction sled, for example, or something?
It's the same concept of constant tension. So surface friction sleds, after you pass that surface friction, it's just momentum. So you're flying, which is good for speed work. But if you're looking at deceleration work or just strength building, our technology is the harder you push, the harder it gets. Now we can do the speed work, but primarily the harder you work, the harder it's going to push back. So you're always getting that constant tension into your legs. You could push and pull, but the biggest mode is that change of direction mode. So that's when we turn one motor on, one motor off simultaneously. And so that is something that is really unique. And it's one of those machines that it's hard to replicate because you're moving in three different planes at the same time, or two different planes at the same time.
Right. So someone would say, well, you can do that with a friction sled, but it's completely different. So I really want, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, let me kind of back this up a little bit. So imagine you're on a football field and you have a device, it's just metal. It's metal skis with metal handles, and typically you would weight it down, and that would be the coach standing on it back in the day. So now I think you might be getting the picture of what I'm talking about. So that friction that you would have turning direction, you know what direction you're turning in. So
Right.
It's not as reactive as it would be. You're proactively pushing it.
Correct.
With what you're talking about, you're reactively responding to the cue that you're giving it.
Correct. And it's very difficult to explain verbally. It's one of those things
I think
where
I just did a really good job.
No, you did. You did an amazing job on that.
So we got it up on the screen right here, the Smart Sled Pro. And you can take a look at this. That's a very good video. Robert, did you shoot that video? All right, good job. Robert, he's here in the background. Magnetic resistance, no weights needed. Got a beautiful model pushing it there. So you can see there the wheels turning. He's having to adjust to it right now. And I like that point, the live feedback data. We're going to talk about that here in a second. App controlled. So this is taking something that's been around. It's a time-honored strength training and agility training and cardiovascular training equipment, but now you've taken it to a new level. All right, Jim, thanks. We got that.
And yeah, it's a good point, because that's how we started this conversation with innovation in the space. I still think there is room for innovation. You could take something that's been around, that's been proven to work, and still innovate on it, and make things a little bit better. Kind of like that hip thrust thing that we were talking about. People are finding innovative solutions, and there's just opportunities everywhere within the gym in terms of creating new products and new things that'll help make workouts easier and safer.
Well, I refer to myself as the MacGyver of the gym because I'm constantly looking at things and seeing them. And I imagine your engineering mind works the same way, but you have the ability to actually take something from a thought and create it like you did with this sled.
Right.
So that is super cool. Now, this really does affect a positive change in a short period of time. We talked about micro workouts at the convention. So this, you don't need to spend a lot of time. You're getting everything. You're getting your cardiovascular, your anaerobic, your strength training, your agility, all in one fell swoop.
Right. So, like you said, with those micro workouts, it's you can get it all done in a short period of time, and with the data paired with that, that brings us to that data analytics side of micro progressions. So not only can you get a micro workout with strength training and cardio involved, but we can look at your micro progressions, meaning, okay, today I pushed 1 meter at 200 watts, and then tomorrow I pushed 1 meter at 205 watts. So now that may not be something that you could visually see from day to day, but for a mental perspective, it's encouraging seeing, okay, I actually got 5 watts better today. So something's happening, something correct is happening. And then the digital world that we live in today, everyone wants that instant gratification. So it's how can we utilize that data analytics and that instant gratification to motivate people to continue on that consistent drive in their fitness journey.
Well, imagine an NFL team, for example. You get this into every NFL team, and I wouldn't even approach the strength coach. I would approach the athletic trainer who's getting the guy back from injury. Mm-hmm. So you talk about those micro progressions. So say a guy blew a knee out, which is common in the NFL.
Right.
We don't necessarily want to put that guy under a load right away in order to get him back. We need to micro progress him through a different series of exercises.
Right.
And having him push a sled like that, which is testing him in different directions. He's not in one single plane of motion like a squat would be. But then you're also able to see the data of that. So that way he knows, hey, it's safe to get back out on the field, because that's a scary thing. But if you can clearly show him with the data, look at what you did.
Right.
You had 200 watts. Now you're pushing 400 watts. You're actually stronger than what you were when you came to camp originally.
Right. And on that note, it's also injury prevention. So before they blow out their knee, if they're working on equipment that shows data analytics, we could use the sled as an example because that's already built. If they're pushing 400 watts like one day of the week, and that's normal for them, and the sled push is something athletes could sandbag very easily. So it could make it look like they're still pushing that 400 watts when they're going 200. But now we can see that. So if a coach sees day to day, he's going 400, and then today it's 200, you can say, hey, what's happening? And then that's injury prevention. Because before they actually blow out their knee, you could rehab it a little bit before or take it easy and utilize that data in that aspect.
Yeah, and that's a thing, right? People sandbagging and not doing the work. We were actually talking about that in the gym this morning with my buddies. He said they would go to CrossFit and they would be doing an exercise. You know when you can get away with not doing the work that you should be doing,
right,
to get the result that you really went there to get. But we're all lazy on some level.
Right.
Right.
You have off days.
So that is being a tattletale, and it's telling on you, hey, you're not working to your capacity. Right. What's going on? You being lazy, you hurt, you don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
It really does a lot of different things.
Right.
So imagine this, and I'm sure you have already, you probably have a whole line of equipment that's already detailed out in your mind that has this same capability and technology built into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously we can't speak too much about it, but we are looking at, utilizing data analytics in your average day strength training equipment. So you're not just looking at your rep count, but quality of reps. So, eccentrics was a big thing for me growing up. I had a professor at UCLA, and I remember I went to school for mechanical engineering, but I would sit in on the sports science classes because I was just interested. And one of the homework assignments he gave us was about concentric and eccentrics. So he said, go to the gym, get a dumbbell, on one arm, curl it up slow and drop it fast. The other arm, curl it up fast and drop it slow, and see where you're sore the next day. And sure enough, your eccentrics are where you're, building and building. And a lot of people are missing out on that precious time of just lowering the weight. And so I spent, months training just eccentrics, and my strength just skyrocketed. And that's where my interest in this comes in terms of, I mean, obviously that's just a small portion of things, but, the quality of the rep is more important than the actual rep itself.
100%. You ever heard of a guy named Paul Chek?
I haven't.
So Paul, you want to look him up. This guy's brilliant. And I used to study his stuff back in the day. And I remember him saying, like, a pull-up is one of the hardest things for people to do. Mm-hmm. It's just hard. And he would always tell me, have your students just do the eccentric part of the movement. And I don't know if this is an actual percentage that is accurate, but he said you have a 70% carryover from eccentric to concentric strength.
Interesting.
So if all you're doing is lowering yourself for 4 weeks, if you can't do a pull-up, just get up there, however, have someone lift you, jump, go up a ladder, hang, and then go down as slow as you possibly can.
Right.
Eventually, over time, the strength that you gain in the eccentric will naturally carry over, like you just said, to the concentric, lifting and lowering phase, and you will get stronger. So,
it definitely works. I mean, I remember my buddy and I, we'd always compete in the gym because, we're roughly the same size. And we were small. We were really small back then. We were 130 pounds, freshman in college, and our goal was to bench 225 because that's what everyone wanted to bench. So he was just, normal meathead, just dropping the weight like football player. And then, so I just did the science way. And, by the time our 8-week period was up, I got 225 for one rep at 130 pounds. And he bulked up to like 150 and he still couldn't get it. And then so he changed and tried the method, and now he's way stronger than me now. But like, it's just interesting how that science will really affect. I mean, that's why you see guys going to the gym every morning. You see the same guys, but no results because they're still not doing the quality correctly.
Sorry to cut you. It's funny we're talking about this because today at the gym we were doing chest, and everyone that I train with is stronger than me. Because they're definitely stronger than me, but I'm not trying to keep up with them. So what I focused on today was the eccentric. I'm going really slow on the way down, and they're looking at me going, wow, that's great. We want to do that. So everyone took the weight off, lowered it, and then we did a drop set with, as much as we could lift and went back. But there's a lot to that. So I want you to give anyone listening right now, say someone's stuck in their workout routine. They're like, man, I'm looking for something different. I want to get stronger. I want to put some size on. What would you say they should do? Like a really quick workout program for them.
Right. So obviously I'm not a coach. I'm not a fitness trainer.
But you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So what I do is I like to do periodization, right? So I'll go volume for 8 weeks and then I'll go heavy for 8 weeks. Obviously, at a younger age, it's acceptable to go heavy. I think older people can as well, just at an extent. Even for me, I take it very cautiously. I don't go extremely heavy.
Be safe.
But that being said, I'll go volume, 10 sets of 10 at a lower weight, and you just have to drop your ego. As a guy in the gym, you drop your ego. It doesn't matter. And then the next period, I would go high eccentrics, heavier weight, lower reps, and work on power and speed. So meaning coming down really slow and then exploding up. So that concentric's still getting the work in, but I'm getting that heavy eccentric on the way down. But
do you have someone there spotting you, helping you with this? Or
I typically don't have a spotter because not a lot of people want to go with me at 4 in the morning.
Okay.
But
you're one of those guys.
Yeah, one of those guys. But other than that, I don't go insanely heavy because of that reason. So I'm cognizant of, the weight. But you can, if you're going 70-80% of your max and you just increase the rep range a little bit, then you're going to get similar results than if you were just go extremely heavy and have a spotter there going to failure.
But specifically with the eccentric training, what would you recommend someone do? If they've done the volume and all the other stuff and they're just looking to do something different, what would the protocol in your opinion be for an eccentric only type of?
I mean, like for example, bench press, right? Everyone wants to increase their bench. I think what I did really
science. What does the science say? That's what we want to get.
The science is you're coming down like 5 or 6 Mississippis and then coming up.
That is slow. Like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Most people are already down and up by that.
Right. Like you see that I use bench press or bicep curls as a big one because you see that all the time. Those big football guys, they bounce it off their chest and come up. I mean, you're missing out, like you said, on almost 70% of, that muscle creation right there. So you want to come down and work that slow and controlled method and then explode up once you get, like, I'll even do pause reps. So you come down 5 or 6 seconds, make sure you get that pause rep and make sure you can explode back up.
Yeah.
Again, spotter is, recommended
Right.
for something like that. But after years of doing it, you kind of understand what range you're at.
Yeah, you know what you can get away with.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors here for Get Busy Living. I'm going to send you over to listen about Merrick Health, where you should get your blood work done. So take a listen to this real quick. I've got a question for you, and I want you to answer this honestly. When was the last time you had a detailed blood test done, like really going deep into your blood and finding out some of the things that might be going on? Now, let me share something with you really quick here. I coach men, right? I coach men all around the world. And the number one thing I hear from men when I ask them, when was the last time you had your blood work done, is, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Listen, the older we get, the more important it is for us to find out what can only be found out in our blood. So I've made an opportunity for you to get a detailed blood panel through a relationship that I have with a company called Merrick Health. Now, I've vetted these people out for you. I use it myself. Matter of fact, I just went this morning and had my blood tested. Got the little prick right there in my vein. And the reason I do this is not just to find out where I'm at in health things like testosterone levels and other hormones that are vitally important that we don't talk about as men, but nutritionally, like, where am I at? What is my body lacking? Where do I need help at? So knowing is better than closing your eyes and acting like if you don't pay attention to it, that it's not going to be there. You really need to understand that this is important. And the reason you would want to use a company like Merrick Health, in my opinion, my experience has shown me, when I go to my GP and I say, hey, can I get my T levels checked? Can I get this checked? This is what my doctor said to me last time. We don't do that. Why do you want those numbers checked? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to let my doctor tell me what doesn't matter. I know what matters to me. So that's why I want you to go check out Merrick Health, man. Don't be this knucklehead guy that says, oh, I don't need to do it, or I'm not going to go get checked because I don't want to find out if anything's wrong with me. That is a horrible way to think. You're going to save 10% by using the code MAXIMIZEDMAN. All of the information is below on the show notes. I want you to go right now and check it out. I have made a detailed panel for you called the Maximized Man Panel that will give you everything that myself and the doctor agree you should get. And when you get it, you're going to have a consultation. You're going to be well taken care of, because trust me, man, this is an area of your life that you need to pay attention to. So go check out the show notes, click on the button, save 10% right now, and possibly save your life. Okay, so do what you will with that. Go off. At least just be working out, man. That's the bottom line. That's why we brought that stuff up. But Alex, what's more interesting to me is the fact that you're a young man. You're 26. My kids are older than you. And you really impress me with your focus. Like, I can see your focus. When I first met you, I could see you watching me, and I could see the wheels turning in your brain. And I imagine there was part like, wow, I can get a lot from this dude, and like, what else can I learn to further what I'm doing? So I want to congratulate you on that again, being a young entrepreneur who is getting ready to drop something on the industry that we've not yet seen. Mm-hmm. And that's, like we said at the beginning, it's not common, man. We see the same stuff over and over and over again. I said it. I've at that show for years, and it's like, okay, there's nothing new here. But when I came by you, it was new. And that's why I jumped on and used it in my jeans. And, you know, I told myself I wasn't going to sweat when I went to the show, but I did, because I liked what I saw. You know?
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means a lot. We've come a long way in terms of product development. And again, being in this spot right now with all the door knocking and all that involved, it means a lot, because, you know, you listen to all these gurus online. Some of them are true, right? Consistency is key, and take one day at a time. And that's kind of what we did. And we just took one day at a time, one door knock at a time, a lot of no's, a lot of, you know, that's not going to work. And, you know, actually Ursa was the first time where we got true market validation. You know, we had big companies looking at us and asking us asking about technology and things like that. So
A lot of people spying, taking pictures,
Yeah.
already looking to knock you off.
definitely.
That's happening already. There's someone somewhere in a factory, in a country, that is looking to get ahead of you with what you brought to the market.
And it was good for us too, because we were working hard, but that put a fire under our ass too, because we know that we lit a couple fires out there. So we have to make sure we're innovating and keeping up with the market.
See, now it's like the old saying, be careful what you pray for.
Exactly.
You wanted to make this thing. And that's the cool thing. I always talk about people who take action. A lot of people have an idea for a piece of fitness equipment. I mean, everybody at some point said, you know what we need to make, bro? And that's the end of it.
Right.
Myself included. I've got a million ideas. Like I said, I'm the MacGyver, but I've never put my money where my mouth was and went out and created something. But now you have it. You've got one. You stick it in the back of a van. You carry it around to some old man's house in Escondido, California, and you're like making these mental notes of how you can really use this thing on different levels with different people.
Right. For sure. And I think another big thing is, like you said, when I met you, it's just like when I meet anyone else, right? Even in the gym, that's where I learned it. I was going to the gym with an ego in high school. You know, I'd pick up, scrawny little Asian kid picking up 45-pound dumbbells and bicep curling, just swinging it. And this big tatted dude, this is like 5 a.m, big tatted dude walks up to me, and I'm scared because I'm like, what's he going to tell me? And he was my mentor. He said, hey man, put your ego down and just listen to people. And then he gave me 15-pound dumbbells, and he goes, I work with 25s. And then he showed me the ropes. Like, that was my journey of being humble. Like my parents always told me, you have an ego, you need to get humbled. And that's what took me in this journey of entrepreneurship. Is every person I meet, whether I think they're smart, they're dumb, whatever, you can learn from them, whether that's their mistakes, mentorship. And I think that's what got me to this point. And there's still so much more growth, but meeting someone like you, we know you have the market expertise, and I look at you as like a book full of knowledge, and it's just, how much knowledge can we get?
Yeah. Well, it was fun doing what we did today, for sure. What did your parents want you to do?
My parents were pretty cool. My mom definitely wanted me to go the engineering route,
Okay.
and I did.
Yeah.
I worked in aerospace construction, Hollywood, everything. And my dad they're all engineers. My whole family's engineers.
Okay.
And my dad was like, I think he's kind of living through this right now. So it's pretty cool to see, you start a company and everyone's kind of laughing at you. My parents weren't laughing at me, but you could tell they're like, okay, see where it goes. It's COVID, you got a couple years. But then to turn it around and have them actually like trying to help you out, try to invest and do all this stuff, it's a really cool feeling that I encourage a lot of young and older entrepreneurs to have, because seeing your parents that proud is something you're not going to get working at a 9-to-5. But it's an interesting feeling for sure. It's
neat that your parents support you. Typically you would hear, a young Asian guy talking about, my parents wanted me to be a doctor or this, but at least everyone was an engineer, and you went in the field that they wanted you to go in.
Right.
So you're getting their support, not having to fight that battle right out of the gate.
I was very blessed for that, because my parents did tell me growing up, do what you want to do. Like they said, I don't want you to be a lawyer or a doctor. Do what you want to do. So just be happy and passionate about it. So they did, guide us in that direction for sure. But you're right. There are a lot of, you could tell they were raised in that, young Asian family, like go be a lawyer, doctor. Because you could tell there's a little hesitancy when they say it, but they mean it. They genuinely want you to be like, okay, we don't want you under that pressure. Go do what you do, but please be an engineer. It was
That's
like
funny.
It was like that kind of situation.
So the door knocking, going back to my statement, you'd made the machine. That's just the beginning.
Right.
Anyone can make a t-shirt, like everybody, hey, I'm going to start a clothing line. Yeah, okay, but now you have to sell it.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. So you go, you have this idea, you create this product. Where do you get the money to manufacture the first one? I mean, like, that's a huge leap from having a sketch on an engineering drawing to actually getting a physical product.
Right. So that's an interesting story as well. So I had a really good relationship with my boss from Hollywood. and he owned a machine shop. So my job back then was to actually machine like products and fabrication and all that fun stuff. So when COVID hit, all the shows also went down. So the machine shop was wide open. And he used to work out with CT Fletcher, and he was in the fitness space. So he got wind of what I was doing, and he said, whatever you need, shop's yours. And so we got to build the first couple out of there completely free. And then I said, you know what, I need to wean myself off of this because it's not realistic for production. And I remember sending out the design to the first machine shop. This was still during COVID, so they were all open. Open from other work. And I thought the quote was going to come out insane. And I remember the first frame was $800. And I was ecstatic. I was like, I thought it was going to be like 10 grand. And so we built the first couple out of pocket, got the patents out of pocket, bootstrapped the whole thing. And luckily our design team was ourselves. So we didn't have to pay for labor. And then we would just be in the gym putting these things together just all night and testing. Nice. And then from there, I moved from Santa Clarita to Orange County. And that was like a blank start. I knew no one here. And I would just door knock at every gym and say, hey, can I show this to you? And I had a Honda. Wow. I had a little Honda. I still have it, my Honda Accord. And they're like, where is it? And they would always automatically walk to a truck in the parking lot. I'm like, no, it's this guy over here. And pull it out of my Honda and sit there with bolts and just assemble it at every gym. And then do the demos.
See, those are the greatest stories ever. You're going to be able to have this in a few years from now when this thing is really starting to get some traction, and to be able to tell that story, because that's where entrepreneurship lives.
Right.
Even when you get successful, you're going to want to go back to those places where you're up all night innovating and creating and doing that stuff. And thank God that you had access to that machine shop. And those are the little things that happen along the way when you know this is what you were meant to do.
Right.
Those little happy accidents that align you on a path. And all you got to do is keep knocking on those doors.
It's funny because that's, a lot of my mentors bring up, like, what is faith in terms of that? And, I don't care what religion people are, but faith is an important thing in entrepreneurship, in my opinion, because without the faith of, there is something there, that's something good's going to happen. That's what gets a lot of people through it, because when one door closes, if you don't have that faith, you just shut down, and that's where most people quit. But if you say, okay, what does this mean? Is there another opportunity? Because that door closed, then it'll open up a lot more doors for you.
Yeah. Faith is evidence of things not yet seen, but the hope of things to come. Right. So you've seen it in your mind, but physically it hasn't been there. But the hope is that someday it'll come. Right. So every single day we wake up with that, because as entrepreneurs, we wake up to more problems than we wake up to more opportunities most of the time. And that's why a lot of people don't take this route.
Right. They take it and they get a taste of it. And then they say,
I'm getting a job.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I've thought of it every day for like the past 2 months. I'm like, I could just get a job right now. But, you look at your impact, your legacy that you want to leave, there's nothing wrong with sitting at a 9-to-5, but there's some people who just want to build something bigger. Yeah. And I think that's everybody in this room right now.
So I got to ask this question. As an engineering student at UCLA, there's this show that I love on TV, BattleBots.
I know a couple of the BattleBot teams.
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm just going to say you have to know them. I love that show. My wife's like, you're so weird. I'm like, just watch it one time with me. Jim, do you watch BattleBots? Yes. Do you love it? I love it, man.
Do you know Jeff Vasquez?
Yes.
So he was one of my mentors. I'm still good friends with him.
Okay.
So he taught me everything I knew in college. So at UCLA, I didn't go to class. I went to the first 2 classes and I said, I don't like this. But my parents wanted me to go to UCLA.
Okay.
I was like, okay, whatever. The deal is they're paying tuition if I go.
Yeah.
Because other than that, I had a job lined up.
You have to go to UCLA. You're Asian. That's part of it.
Pretty much. I got in and I was like, is that good? I didn't even know about colleges. I got in and I was like, is that a good thing? And my mom's like, yeah, you're going. I'm like, okay. So went to the first 2 classes, said, this isn't for me. I'm just going to show up to the midterms and finals. So I got a job as an engineer instead, like an intern at this company called Megit. It was an aerospace company. Jeff Vasquez was the head R&D engineer there. So he took me under his wing and taught me everything I know.
That's awesome. And what's his robot on there?
I forget which one. It's the green one.
Okay.
I
Ribbit? No.
No, it's something else. I got to look it up and show it to you.
Yeah. I think it'll be on tomorrow night. Thursday nights is BattleBots. And so have you ever thought about doing something like that? Would that be fun for you? Like that? The Smart Sled looks like the beginning. You take the handle off.
It does, yeah.
Put some kind of
some weapons on there.
Rotary, yeah.
I think it's super cool. I think robotics is super cool. My thing was just fitness. I found a passion for fitness, and I'm like, I wasn't supposed to be an engineer. Naturally, I'm not an engineer. I'm more of a creative, artsy person. But I went into engineering, and that's something that I think is beneficial for people. People typically go into their strengths, but if you already have a strength and you force yourself to work on your weaknesses, now you have two strengths. And so
if you hear that, people, repeat that again. That's really good.
So if you have a natural strength and you force yourself to learn your weakness, you have two strengths, and that's going to benefit you more in any industry. Because like for me, for example, engineers are typically black and white in their thinking, but if you add a creative into an engineering situation, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. I'll be honest, the hardest people that I have to coach are engineers.
Yeah.
Because they want to know every single detail and have everything mapped out. And I'm like, you don't need to know all of this information.
Right.
You just need to do what I'm telling you to do.
Right.
Well, nope. It's interesting to work with those guys. Sometimes I'll turn them away.
Yeah. No shame on the engineers. They make the world spin. But the reason I don't work with engineers is because they also have this thing of always being correct. And it's very difficult to work. It's because, and it's not their fault. It's the way that the education system is set up, because in all the way through K through college, they're given projects, and it's peer based, right? So it's all based off of a curve. They have to compete against each other. So I don't know why they expect when they go in the workforce that they're all going to be working together. And that's, it just becomes a game of who's smarter instead of a game of let's collaborate and make something great together. And that's why I'd rather do entrepreneurship with creatives who like to collaborate and brainstorm, and see what we can make.
That's where the real magic happens, right? Because you're getting all of these different gifts and talents in, and you're going to end up with a great product. The old saying, Rodney King, can't we all just get along?
Right.
If everyone could get along in a workspace like that, and the engineers realize that they're not always right, and the creatives realize that they can't just be dreaming all the time, they need someone to actually put it together. Right. Then now you're coming up with something. So to have both of those strengths in one person, in the entrepreneurial background, in desire, in DNA, man, you're on a path to really do some cool stuff, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my dad was a big motivator for that, because he would go to business conferences. He's a CTO of ITT. So he's worked his way up there. And he would teach me things like, we just put a finance guy in our engineering meeting, because he doesn't know what's going on in engineering. And he'll say those creative things that, other engineers will shut down. And typically those guys are the ones who innovate for us, which is interesting because people don't realize that. But it's the finance guy that could be the guy making the space parts, or the airplane parts.
It's crazy, man. The whole world of entrepreneurship. Speaking of that, I have a friend who's an entrepreneur. He has a company called Icon Meals, and we're going to send you over to a little commercial about Icon Meals and why they're so important to me, and they should be to you. The number one thing I think that has helped me stay lean at 59 years old is being prepared with my food. I always hear guys say, when I ask them the question, what did you eat today? Well, I had to run through a drive-through. I didn't have anything to eat. I travel a lot, so I don't get good food. Icon Meals has been the thing that has saved my life and so many of my friends when it comes to anything as far as having your meals prepped. They taste good, they show up fast, and you can save 10% right now by using the code Clark. Trust me, I want you to head over to iconmeals.com. Check out all of the beautiful menus. They have the bulk box. They have the lean box. They have the keto box. They have something for everybody. If you're a vegan, you could go on and custom order the food that you want. You can custom order the amount of protein, the amount of carbohydrates, custom make a box or have them send one for you. Once again, use the code Clark. Go to Icon Meals right now, save 10% and get free shipping. Okay, so we've covered a lot here already, and I think there's a whole lot of takeaways that people could apply to their life. Again, this is this action thing that I always talk about. None of this information that is being shared with us or that we share with somebody is any good unless you put it into action.
Right.
So I got a question for you with that being said. You've mentioned a couple times mentors in your life and people that have kind of poured into you. Who is someone... And it doesn't even need to be someone, it could be someone online that you like to listen to. And what do you do to take action? That's the most important thing, right?
Right. That's a good question. So obviously, like I've been talking, my parents are number one motivation.
I love that you mentioned your parents first. That's
yeah, because cool. I mean, in this space at my age, you could say, you know, Alex Hormozy or whatever that you listen online. But, you know, the people closest to you that are going to support you are the ones that are your family and friends. And so I think that's the number one important thing. Two are a lot of my friends, right? It's really hard to come home. And I'm blessed for this because a lot of people and entrepreneurs have friends that laugh at them and joke around with them. I'm blessed to come home to, you know, friends that will support me no matter what. Even if it's a joke, they'll tell me like, yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea, but keep going. We'll support you.
That's rare too, man.
It's very rare. I never had people just laugh at me. And then 3, I think the mentors in my workspace. So I did go the corporate route, and I met a lot of people and I learned from a lot of people, and I just kept in touch with them. And I said, because if I have, you know, a sensor problem, I have someone in the industry in the engineering department that does sensors all day, and they're more than willing to help, you know, free of charge. So all those people combined gave me that therapeutic, like, you know, place to go when I had a problem. And then on top of that, my new mentors, my new business partners, they're like a security blanket. If there's an issue with something, they just say, hey, it's going to be okay. Just keep moving forward. So having that behind me is kind of what kept me going. If I didn't have that, I probably would have quit years ago, to be honest.
Yeah, it's super cool that you have BodyCore supporting you in this endeavor and giving you a runway.
Right.
To get this thing off the ground, because as we've already stated, business is not easy, right? Yeah. Having a product, you got to knock on doors. Like how many of those doors and gyms that you went to that you knocked on and took that little Honda Accord and assembled that Smart Sled in the parking lot? How many of them said, nah, we already got a sled?
I would say all of them except EBS. Okay. So a big shout out to EBS, owned by Marcus Epps, who now plays for the Raiders, and his coach, Karif Bird. So the funny story about that was I had a meeting with another gentleman at a gym in Orange County. I was door knocking at every gym in Orange County every day. And he bailed on me. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I remember an ad on Instagram for EBS. I said, let me go check them out.
So what was your goal at the gyms? Did you just want them to buy one unit from you?
No, the goal wasn't even purchase. The goal at that point, it was feedback, and at that point I needed cash. So I said, hey, I have a product. I could produce 5 of them. Let's run a sled class. Let's do a boot camp. And so I was just trying to find a gym that would let me do a boot camp out of their facility. And I knew EBS had a turf. So I said, and they were renting it out for $50 an hour. And so that was my next spot. I wasn't even planning on going. And I met with Karif that day, door knocked, and he gave me 10 minutes. And so I made a 10-minute pitch.
Put them on that damn thing for 10 minutes. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, and I don't door knock and just say, hey, you know, I have a product. Let me bring it back next week. I assemble it and I bring it to the facility and I say, hey, I have it right here. Just get on it for 2 minutes, 10-second demo, and you'll be sold. And sure enough, he was the one guy who took a chance on me. And he said, come back tomorrow. He had NFL like lineman coaches. He had probably 20 people there. He didn't tell me about it. And he was like, all right, you're going to pitch it to these guys right now. this is your test. And,
Hell yeah.
we pitched it, and that's how I met Bodycore, and things just skyrocketed from there. And one mentor, Ed Milet, I don't know him personally, but he has that book, The Power of One More.
Power of one more.
And it's like one more door knock. If I stopped that day, I still would have been in my garage, trying to figure things out.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to say, man. That one more knock, man, was the one that kind of that tipping point.
Yep. So it's definitely another message that I think is important is people could see this on Instagram, like, oh, he's made it, he has a product. People don't realize that like you said, business is hard. We're still hustling. We're still like broke guys because we're dumping all this money back into the company. So it's not, the image there isn't something I want to portray as, yeah, we've made it. It's still, we're still out there grinding like everyone else.
And you should always be out there doing that. I don't like the word grinding so much because it feels so negative to me.
Right.
You're out there passionately sharing something that was born from your creative mind.
For sure. Yeah. I agree.
And I see it that way because you're actually in a flow state.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there doing what you love. It wasn't a problem for you to drive down here and come in the thing. You've got Robert here shooting with the camera. Like everyone's doing what they love.
Yep.
When Robert walked in here, he almost, he just was in heaven. He's looking at all of this gear in the studio and he's like, there it is, man. It's just all of the stuff. He's like, wow, this is great. So we all have that unique space in life. It's not a grind.
Yeah.
It's fun.
No,
man.
It's fun. It's passion.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I actually like that a lot. We're living life and people don't get the opportunity to do this.
Get busy living.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I love that sign on the back of your Jeep.
And on my shirt and on my shoes.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, man. It's the name of the podcast. Yo, check it out.
But that's the beauty of this is, life is going to be stressful regardless. So do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you got to meet great people,
Damn straight, man. I'm happy that I had the opportunity to meet you at the show. Earlier we were talking about, this is kind of a side note, but it's still technology based.
Mm-hmm.
We were getting ready to start the podcast, so I wanted to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And I just switched from Android to iPhone, and I didn't know how to do it, right? And I was telling Alex that I got so much hate from people. People really take their technology serious, man. I got DMs, brother, from 4 different people that weren't just saying, I can't believe you switched over. They were being mean to me.
Yeah.
Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Android
when it's
Apple.
green, it's a thing. I was Android for a while because I was so cheap. Like I broke my phones left and right because I would just toss them in the gym. And so I'm like, Android's cheap. We'll just get that. All the way through college, actually, I was Android. And people would give me so much hate. I didn't even know what a DM was until like 3 years ago. and I'm 26, so it's like I should have known that. But people think of me as a technology guy, but I know how to use one software on my computer. That's it.
That's efficiency.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to know, you know it and you use it. And
Right.
then when you need to know the next thing, you know it and you use it. Now I know how to silence my iPhone. So speaking of being silenced, if you're an Android person and you're mad at me, silence. I don't want to hear it. All right.
That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, even Rob's my tech guy, and Rob's what, 40, 42, 43. So he's more of a tech guy than I am. And
I am more of a tech guy for a lot of people, even on social media platforms. The last 2 shows we did, we talked about social media. I had one of the people who work with me, Kathy Fulton, was on, and we were talking about social media. I'm teaching more people about TikTok and Instagram, like how to post your reels. And you had mentioned earlier at my house, the consistency
Right.
part of it.
It's so difficult.
Wow.
It is, like, I've tried for our business. It is, I don't know how you do it, but it is difficult. I could see though, like if you're an entrepreneur and you dedicate to, you find your niche and you dedicate to consistency, that's what I stay in my lane in product development. Like if I'm consistent in one product, we can launch it and it'll be fine. But same thing with social media. People don't realize it's a massive tool, and to launch your own product, to launch your personal brand. And like you said, to get started, to take action is just taking the first step.
That's it.
You don't need it. You need to see kind of the end goal of like, okay, I can make this thing work. But between the first step and that, there's going to be a lot of, hills and valleys. So the hardest part is just starting. Once you get started, it's just mindless work.
Yeah. Have you ever been to a factory in China seeing
I haven't.
manufacturing?
We might be going in a couple months though. But yeah, I haven't been there yet.
So I got a great story for you. You'll appreciate as an engineer. At the URSA show years ago, I walked into a booth. I was just with a buddy of mine, Roger Bates, who owns Lifecore or Assault Fitness. It used to be Lifecore. So I was just minding my own business, and I go into this booth, and they have it all closed off, and there was a machine. You saw one of the machines in my garage. It was a different one, though. So I'm minding my own business, looking at this machine, and I'm kind of an engineering mind, a guy that's used the machine 50 billion times. So I'm like, these cables are cheap. This could move a little bit better. I would add this. I would do that. And one of the guys sees me doing that. So I recognize that. So on the way out, I grab a piece of paper and a pen. In true Clark Bartram fashion, I write down my name and phone number, and I slide it to the guy, and I said, give me a call, and I'll show you 15 things about that machine that you can improve. And I walked out, and I knew I got to him. So 6 months later, because the Chinese don't move fast, they move very slow.
Right.
And 6 months later, I get a call, say, hey, Clark, what would you do to change this machine? I'm like, oh, we got to come up with a deal. So we ended up making a deal. Next thing I know, I'm in China, in a factory, in the middle of Tianjin, China, in the middle of nowhere. It took us forever to get there. It's freezing. They got the heat turned off. It's just a thing, right? It's all new to me.
Right.
There's a room full of engineers, probably 20 of them, and the machine's sitting in the front. They bring me into the front of the room. I'm standing there with the guy who had brought me in, my host, and he's speaking in Chinese, telling them, and I hear Clark, da-da-da-da-da, Clark. And then he looks at me and he says, tell them what they need to do. So I look at him and said, hey, well, tell him I'm happy to be here. He's like, no. I said, no, I don't want to see. I said, just tell him he said, no, we don't do that. And he went like this. Everyone in the room stood up with a notepad and a pen. He said, tell him what to do. And I just got the machine. I said, I will put a little swivel here. I would do this. I would change these cables. I would do that. And these guys were swarming around the machine taking notes, man. And I don't know what's going on. Nobody spoke English but the one guy. I don't speak any Chinese. So I just saw these guys going to work. 3 months later, they fly me back. That machine was exactly how I said it needed to be, man.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is. It's crazy out there. They're really slow until they get you in the door.
Yeah.
Then they're just like,
well, that happened. But making the
exactly.
decision and, the money that it was going to take to get me to go do that was the slow part. There were lawyers and all sorts of different things involved. But the experience was phenomenal. I went to the factory probably 4 different times, and it was amazing. Not just with that, but with that bullfrog machine that I have. You saw that thing.
Yeah.
That was fascinating too. Got the opportunity to go there and be in that factory. That was a different experience because when I went in, there was a big sign, welcome Clark Bartram from California, USA. Right. I walk in, got the greeting. Everyone spoke English there. And we sat down and we were just looking at stuff that I wasn't qualified to look at until it got to the practical application of it.
Right.
Like they were looking at the gears and the wheels and all this sort of stuff. But I was fascinated by the conversation and I'm like, these people are smart.
Yeah.
I'm just the guy that knows how to use it and break it. And like we broke something today. Yeah. And that's what I do. But there's value in that part of it too. That's where the collaborative.
For sure. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. And I think so Germany does it well, China does it well, and Japan, what they do well is they start people. Let's say I want to be an engineer, right? They don't start me at a university. They start me at the janitor of the machine shop. And that's where I started too. That's how the shop I grew up in, that's how you start. You start as a janitor. Doesn't matter what your qualifications are, you're sweeping the floors. And now, here in America, that's the big thing. You start in a privileged setting already with, middle-class parents, go to school, mindlessly go to college, get your engineering degree, and now you're working on spaceships. Wow. That's the misconnect that our country has compared to theirs. And so that's another thing we're working on right now is developing an education system for creatives and teaching them how to design, how to take action, and try to reshore a little bit of manufacturing back to the U.S. So that's our next goal outside of fitness.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. That's the
Yeah.
long-term thing that this will slide you into eventually, right? Because you're going to hire a couple people, your buddies, and like, hey, help me build these next 10.
Right.
Still bootstrapping it along the way, even though you have BodyCore to help you out. It's still a process of, hey, we gotta pull everyone together to make this work, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah, it is, because that's where you're in the trenches, as they say. But again, that's kind of a negative connotation, because it's a bonding experience. We experienced it in the movie industry, right? You have to build this prop. You need it in an insane, almost impossible timeline. But when you get it done, you have this sense of accomplishment, and it's almost like sports. It's team bonding. It's team bonding that you don't forget. You know, if you're playing another team that you're expected to lose, but you guys pull it off, you're never going to forget that game. You know, that's the same exact situation we're in here. Is, you know, we're facing big dogs in the industry, you know, and if we pull it off, you're not going to forget this journey.
Yeah, well, I believe you're going to pull it off for sure. So let's talk about Hollywood a little bit. That's a fun topic. You mentioned Mandalorian. That's the big thing that's going around right now. Like my son, and you know, they're all Star Wars people. And so, what props did you work on in that show?
So my coworkers were the ones who primarily worked on that show. I worked on like little bits and pieces, but the shop did the speeder bikes, the Baby Yoda cradle, you know, like the masks. So we got to see all of that fun stuff. And that was a big show that went through, like all those closing doors. That wasn't CG. That was legitimate mechanical closing doors, full scale, everything.
Wow.
So we got to work with a lot of that. And that's like a team sport, because you have guys designing, cutting, you know, doing electronics, and everyone has to work together. You have to collaborate and work together. So they'd put me on that show on the weekends if I was there. The big ones I worked on were, you know, 911, SWAT, Matrix 3.
Here's the Baby Yoda cradle. Jim.
Yeah, I remember working with my buddy on that part. There was a gyroscope that we had to create on the bottom. And I was working for another show that weekend, but it was just me and him. So we were just messing around, and there was a gyroscope that no one saw to keep it stable.
Oh.
So when they moved it around, it looked like it was floating. But it was very interesting. Some of these guys are really creative in ways that they problem solve. And that's where I learned a lot. You know, it's like, how do we get things done simply and effectively, yet safe? Because that was the big thing about Hollywood is we're creating stunts. So 911 was a big show where, I don't know if you could pull it up, but they have a movie industry like style production for every show, which isn't super common. And so there'd be like plane crashes, helicopter crashes, every scene. And we would have to build those props.
Wow.
And, you know, the safety is the first thing, because you can't, you know, you don't want a prop to fail and land on someone.
Right.
I remember the first one they had me on that show. It was the scene was someone's getting sucked into a jet engine. And they're like, you have to remake the jet engine full scale, go to the airport, and then install it. And you can't touch a single thing on the airplane. Because they said, if you break one of these little pipes, it's $3 million.
Yeah. Now we know why movies are so expensive to make, man.
Yeah.
You're breaking it and rebuilding it.
Yeah. They had a scene. This one blew my mind. It was same show, 911. The scene was the apartment complex was burning down. So we're over at Universal. There's just a parking lot one day. I come back the next day, construction came in. They built up the whole apartment. And then, like, out of framing and wood, and then they just dressed the outside. Our job, because we're pyrotechnics as well, was to lay down the pipe, and they're flame bars, so it'll burn the whole thing down. So they legit burned down the whole apartment. And then the next day, after it was all burned down, they cleaned it all up. So within 4 days, it went from parking lot to a burned down apartment back to a parking lot.
That's crazy, man.
So that's nice. Yeah, the money's there.
That's Hollywood, man. Building facades and burning them down.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like life too, right? We build facades and we burn them down. That's the evolution of being humans. Well, listen, Alex, you are an impressive young man. I'm so happy that we've had the opportunity to meet, and hopefully we're going to have the opportunity to work together more in the future, doing stuff that we did today. How can people find you online? where would they go? What, go ahead and promote anything you want to promote right now as we end this show.
Definitely visit Mach Fitness Lab on Instagram or Bodycore.
How do you spell Mach? M-A-C-H?
M-A-C-H.
Mach Fitness Lab.
And bodycore.com. That's
and what's your Instagram?
Alex Kime. Yeah, that's all our socials.
I love it, man. So any motivation that you would have as we close for a young entrepreneur out there who has an idea, who has a dream, what would you say to him?
Just get started and be humble. So listen to everyone around you and meet as many people as you can.
That applies to anyone and everyone. Get started, be humble, listen to anyone and everyone you can. That is it. As always, get busy living and make it great.